Hello and welcome to Aviation Talk. Welcome to episode 1. Hopefully this will be a continued podcast, we'll see. My name is Fayaz Garda and I'm here with my two other colleagues.
Aaron Singh.
Dennis about.
And today we're going to be talking about many things as far as aviation is concerned. I don't have the notes, so that's up to Dennis. But yeah.
Podcast notes.
Well, why don't we start off with talking about the different flight types between Airbus and Boeing. So last week we did a trial podcast, and obviously none of you have heard it because it went horribly wrong. But basically, one of the topics that was brought up was how Aaron is a big fan of a yoke instead of a flight stick.
Okay, let's just address that. I'm not a big fan of Boeing. I'm just a big fan of Boeing's yoke system compared to Airbus's joystick.
So why is that the case?
Because, I mean, you have a two-handed input on it, so it's just more in control.
At what point in the flight will we have two-hand input?
You never know. I mean, any severe turbulence, you never know when you might need two-handed control.
Okay. Why do you need two-hand input?
You just never know.
Yeah, but why do you need two-hand input?
It's always good to have redundancy.
What? What, in case you lose one hand? What?
No, it's not losing one hand. It's just nice. I mean, you think about your car. Imagine just having only one half of the steering wheel.
Right. If a car was controlled by a flight stick, you would only have one hand input. That makes no sense. Okay, so we looked at two videos. One was a video showing Airbus takeoff and landing, and one was a video showing a Boeing 737's takeoff and landing. We'll have the links to both videos below. But does those two videos, do they change your opinion at all?
I mean, yeah, obviously slightly, but...
Right, towards what? Still sticking with your opinion?
Still obviously going to stick with the yoke on Boeing, but I sort of respect the joystick Airbus as well.
It's not a joystick.
Whatever it is, okay, I'm still going to call it joystick, okay?
Right. What about the fact that the Boeing aircraft, the pilot has to manually trim the aircraft?
Yeah,
not all airplanes. I must point out that the latest ones, like the 787 and the 777, does automatically trim if the airline selects such option. But the 737, well, it competes against the A320.
Yeah,
you have to manually trim.
Yeah, obviously, A320 is the preferred one. Like the cockpit, it's just the control input with the yoke and the joystick.
So if an Airbus, so you're saying Airbus?
If the Airbus had a yoke, that would just complete the cockpit overall. No. How was your input?
My input is I prefer the Boeing one.
Exactly. See?
Whoa.
No.
Last week you didn't say that.
Yeah, exactly, because I told him the viewpoint of imagine having one
I'm
hand.
not gonna lie, I just said that for controversial reasons. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't care. Boeing, yeah, it seems a little bit more cumbersome to have sort of like a steering wheel kind of thing in front of you. Airbus seems a bit cleaner, a bit more sophisticated. I don't like how when you're the captain you can only use your left hand unless you're in Japan, because obviously they the other way around. But yeah, using your left hand only seems a little bit annoying, but I'm pretty sure if you...
But that applies to Boeing as well, because in a Boeing aircraft, when you obviously take off land, or even if you fly, you would have one hand on the yoke and one hand on your throttle controls. So you would still be only using your left hand if you're captain, or your right hand if you're the first officer.
That is true, but I feel like the rotation of a yoke and
side stick.
That one.
Joystick.
I feel like the rotation of a yoke is easier to manage.
Okay. Why? Why do you say that?
I just feel like it is. I don't know why. I think it's the fact that you have to extend your arm out and move in a sort of vertical way, as opposed to an Airbus where you're moving on a horizontal plane, which seems to be much easier and therefore easier to make a mistake. It's easier to have accidental input on an air, in my opinion. Obviously, I've never done it, but I would imagine.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I mean, I've only flew a Cessna 172 that has a yoke input. I've never flew with a control stick.
Okay, but when you flew the Cessna, that's a good point you bring up. When you flew the Cessna, how many hands did you use?
To be fair, I only actually used one.
Exactly.
But
you never need to use two.
It was nice to when he said use both hands on it to just control it like with both hands. It was
What,
nice.
like you're driving the ship or something. Like when you
It's
ever,
just-
What ship do you know that uses a steering wheel like that?
what ship doesn't
Back
use?
in the day they did, but not anymore.
What do you mean?
They use steering wheels
Most
now.
military aircraft will have steering wheels.
Aircraft.
Military ships,
Carriers, I think.
carriers.
Yeah.
They have steering wheels.
Yes.
I think so. Really?
Yes. What do you mean?
I don't think they'd have a steering wheel. I don't know. It just seems like it's very.
Have you not seen the TV series The Last Ship?
Yeah, but isn't it like tiny? I swear it's like.
Yeah,
It's
not really
literally like about that big circle.
Okay, yeah. It's not. Okay, it's a
It's
steering
still a
wheel.
steering
but
wheel.
It's like a. It's like
I'm not talking like Titanic, where it's like full on
Yeah,
wooden one where you like
That's,
spin it
that's
hundreds of times.
bloody Jack Sparrow or something.
No,
But,
it's not that. No, it's not like that. But cruise liners would have jet control inputs nowadays.
Right.
It's all automated, anyways. I don't think you would ever like. You just tell the computer what to do and it will do it. I don't think
Yeah.
you ever would control it manually.
Mm.
But military ships and other ships still do have steering wheels. Yes.
Hello and welcome to the Ship Podcast, where we talk to you about.
No, we are not digressing down that route.
Just slightly digress. Right.
No, but that also that's an interesting point as well. With like, because I think Airbus is more sophisticated with the technology side. Because I think on their screens they have more like
Yes.
newer technology.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting topic, and in fact, we probably will discuss it in a lot more detail next week, where we compare, obviously, to Airbus's philosophy of automation and limiting inputs that pilots can do. Because
Yeah.
I mean, the way Airbus sees it is the biggest crashes or the most frequent cause for crashes is human error.
Yeah.
It's always, well, it's not always, but majority of the time it would be human error of some form. So that's why they want to limit the input from the pilots. Obviously, the pilot is always ultimately in command,
Yeah.
but they want to limit that. Well, whereas Boeing's philosophy is the pilot is in charge and ultimately they have control over everything, which has caused accidents before.
You
True,
know,
yeah.
see, when I look at Boeing now, especially after the 787, I have to say the 737 Max incidents have
Yeah.
tarnished my view of Boeing.
Right.
And if I was to give an analogy of Boeing, it's like if you look at the automotive world, in Europe you've got Porsche, you've got the Porsche, which is owned by the Volkswagen Group, and Volkswagen make, as we all know, very uptight, sort of reliable cars.
Yeah.
And, they do have their little issues. Volkswagens have gearbox issues and stuff, but on the whole, they're normally ahead in the technology, and they're normally, especially Porsche, they're in the forefront of quality and
Yeah.
design. And then you look on the estate side, you look at Chevrolets, you look at your Fords, and it doesn't have that same cutting edge feel.
Mm.
It can be a bit
Well, it
cheaper.
depends what car you buy.
It does depend, but on the whole, if you were to look at a top-end American car and a top-end European car, the European ones wins every time.
Mm.
Whether that be a sports car, whether that be a luxury car, Rolls-Royce, for example, Ferrari, Lamborghini, it's all European.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but I feel like it's a similar philosophy with Airbus, which is the European one, and Boeing.
Yeah, you got a point there.
But also, I mean, when you look at Airbus, it's a multinational company.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally have factories based in UK, Germany, France.
It's
Now
multinational,
that
but at
they-
the same time, Europe is marginally larger than America.
Right. Okay.
There's that aspect, and then there's also the aspect of, Airbus had already built a spectacular plane, A320neo, and Boeing was facing competition, so they had to rush out something.
Right.
They didn't. They didn't have to.
They didn't have
sort
to.
of did,
They didn't have to, but
because otherwise,
there was a lot of pressure, and obviously
Exactly.
the people in decision-making positions made the wrong decision.
As Alex said himself, instead of rushing to fill in, or try and compete with Airbus.
That was actually me, but sure. Give the credit to the lecturer. I won't judge.
yeah, obviously, Alex deserves it.
Yeah. Instead of trying to fill in and compete with
They could have
Airbus,
started a new
they
project.
could have, what's the next thing? What's
Yeah.
the next big thing?
True.
It might be. I'm not sure why. Maybe they just felt like the opportunity that they were losing was just too big. I'm not sure.
Well, the thing is, I think the reason why they kind of saw themselves backed into a corner was because Airbus was really doing well. Not only did they produce the A320neo, and A320 family neo, so that's
Yeah.
A321, A320, A319, A318, which were groundbreaking in terms of how fuel efficient they are, and how cheap they are to maintain, how well they can integrate within existing fleets. It was very groundbreaking. In fact, they produced and sold more than Boeing was selling 737s at the time.
How much does the fuel efficiency of an aircraft have to do with the engine? I assume a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
But that's not
because
Airbus.
It's not just the engine. Well, it is Airbus, because Airbus designs the aerodynamic forces that puts the engines onto the aircraft.
True.
I mean, that's why MCAS came into the Boeing. Boeing wanted to introduce more fuel-efficient engines onto their plane.
Exactly. So
That's why they had to redesign the whole aerodynamic structure of the plane.
the engine was bigger, so they had to move it forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is Airbus at the end, like in terms of designing the aircraft itself.
The problem is Boeing tried to shoehorn.
I mean, at the end of the day, Boeing was in a tricky situation. The 777 productions were experiencing a lot of issues because of Rolls-Royce engines. Obviously, the 737 was like selling less than the A320neos, and now Airbus obviously bought 51% of Bombardier's C-series production. So not only was Airbus winning in terms of wide-body aircraft, they were winning in terms of low-cost, regional, mid-tier aircraft. Exactly. And now they purchased Bombardier C-series, and they were started to produce aircraft in the regional market, which in the US it's a very big market. In fact, Airbus estimated they want to sell up to 7,000 planes of such sorts.
Who's the largest? It's Air Baltic, isn't it, for the A220?
For the A220
complete fleet.
It wasn't the largest, but it was one of the first partners who invested in it. And in fact, Air Baltic
complete fleet.
Literally changed the entire fleet of 737-300 series, 737-500, I think it was. Bombardier Q400 aircraft. A lot of different planes were all replaced by this one
Airbus
A220, which, I mean, it just shows how good the plane is. It not only is it fuel efficient, it fits in the market very well.
And ultimately now Boeing have come out worse.
Yeah, so they were backed in a corner. They were trying to get out of this corner, and instead of, coming up with a creative way to get out of it, they caved under pressure and ultimately made the wrong decision, and now they're in an even deeper hole than they were before.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about Boeing before. There's 2 crashes that were caused by the MCAS malfunctioning. There's obviously the Lion Air Flight 610,
right,
and of course
and the Ethiopian Airlines flight number, what was it?
Ethiopian Airlines 302. So both of these planes unfortunately crashed, and there were no survivors.
Well, first of all, what is like the background of MCAS?
Okay, so the way MCAS came about was during the B737 Max design stage, where several design changes from the B737 NG, which stands for Next Generation, were incorporated. These changes included, but were not limited to, the incorporation of CFM LEAP-1B series turbofan engines, structural changes to accommodate these new engines, advanced technology winglets, aft body aerodynamic improvements, fly-by-wire spoilers, and maneuvering characteristics augmentation system, or better known as MCAS function. Collectively, the changes incorporated into the B737 Max design resulted in increased fuel efficiency, increased range, and a reduced noise profile compared to its predecessor, the B737 NG. Now, the reason MCAS software was required is because the new fuel-efficient engines had to be moved forwards towards the nose of the plane, as well as higher up compared to the B737 NG. This resulted in upwards pitching movement when travelling at low speeds, which could result in a stall. This would typically happen after takeoff and during landing. This is especially true at stages of flight when the aircraft is flying at low speed in a flaps-up configuration. There is a great video made by a YouTube channel called Mentor Aviation. The guy is a real-world B737 captain, and he explains in detail how it works and how to deal with MCAS if it goes wrong. I recommend you give it a watch if you need the information for your coursework, or if you're simply interested in the topic. we'll put the link in for the video in the description down below.
This is the part where I'm going to do the host ad read. This week we're going to be advertising ourselves and our society. So we are the CU Aviation Society, and basically if you like aviation, trivia quizzes about aviation and winning prizes, or if you just want to have fun discussions about the latest aviation news in the industry, then this is the society for you. All you need to do to sign up is go to the CUSU website, that is www.cusu.org/society/aviation-soc, or click the link in the description to sign up today. On top of that, we also have ALMAT Aviation. ALMAT Aviation is a fixed-wing aircraft or helicopter flying experience that you can take advantage of. So if you'd like to obtain your own PPL, which is private pilot's license, or just fly for entertainment purposes, then ALMAT Flying Academy is the one for you. They are based out in Coventry Airport and offer industry competitive pricing for all their flying experiences, lessons and aircraft rentals. I believe they are also giving us a 10% discount as well, so that's great if you want to take advantage of that. Go to www.almat.co.uk, and there you'll be able to find even more details about the experience.
Right, let's just get back on track then. Now, do you think the whole Boeing 737 Max situation has helped Airbus massively, or given them any competitive advantage? Aaron, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, obviously it's given them huge competitive advantages.
Why do you say that?
Because I mean, the A320 video sold so much.
Yeah, but he already sold so much before this all happened.
Yeah, and now they have the A220 as well, which is also the most economical.
Yeah, but what? Okay, but what did the situation?
So now if they,
what advantage did the situation give?
I think it's more the fact that their name or their reputation hasn't
is
been
still high.
tarnished. In fact, it's actually been elevated.
Okay,
exactly.
Whereas Boeing's has been tarnished massively.
So in the long term, if airlines were to consider something, they probably would see Airbus as more favourable. What about short term?
Do you remember when Samsung came out with the Samsung Galaxy Note 9? I think it was Note 8 or Note 9.
7.
Was it 7?
I mean,
was
I
it 7?
remember it.
No, it was Note 7. You're right.
Don't know much
Samsung
about it.
Galaxy Note 7. What happened with that phone? It kept catching fire. Massive phone for Samsung. That is their ultimate flagship phone. It kept catching fire. In the end, they had to recall every single phone. They had to scrap the entire model. It became illegal for someone to have that phone
On a flight.
On a flight, yeah. And Samsung sent out updates, basically such that if you didn't return your phone became useless. It's the same thing with Boeing. They have a product that's not worked, just like Samsung did. If you look at how Samsung have responded,
they responded in a far better situation.
What do you mean?
Like recalling all the products and then sending out software updates to shut down the phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what difference is that
I mean,
to what Boeing has done?
Well, first with the Lion Air crash, they tried to brush it under the rug, and then the Ethiopian crash happened.
Samsung tried to do that to begin with, and then it
Not
kept
that
happening
much,
with
though.
multiple phones.
Well,
the problem was it kept happening to multiple Samsung phones. They recalled them all, and they recovered in an incredible way. They basically just pretended it never happened, and they fixed all of the issues, and they came out with an even better product the year after. But Boeing can't do that because of how much they've invested now in the 737 Max. It's not a case of a new phone that comes out every year. A new airplane comes out, every many years. I'm not going to put a number of years on it, but many years. So it's a very different situation, yet it's very similar. I think Boeing can take a lot from Samsung, because Samsung are the second biggest mobile manufacturers in the world after Huawei, and their main competition is obviously Apple when it comes to the flagship market. So if you look at how Samsung took responsibility, and then they took that and in their next model of phones, they showed how they were testing it, and they showed the extra steps and procedures that they were taking to make this the safest phone they could make. That's exactly what Boeing need to do. Boeing need to say, look, we've made a mistake, which they didn't do to begin with, to be fair, tried to sweep it under the rug. They now need to come out and say, we've made a mistake, this is what we're doing to rectify it, which they're doing to an extent, but really it still looks like they're trying to, it doesn't look very convincing. And they need to then market themselves in a way that people have trust in the brand in the future, as people have trust in Samsung still.
Okay. Yeah, but then to hear about this question, you as a consumer right now, Boeing has went through all the certification by the FAA right now, okay, and it's certified, it's all good, ready to fly. Are you as a consumer still like ready to get on the aircraft, or
Yes.
are you still hesitant?
No,
I'd feel better
I'm okay.
if it was certified by CAA than FAA.
But it is. EASA are doing their own certification.
They'll do their own certification, but if it was just an FAA thing, I'd still probably fly on the plane, but I wouldn't feel as good about it because they're the ones who made their part need to blame in the first place.
Okay, so going back to the question, do you think it has given Airbus a competitive advantage?
Yes,
Okay, short term or long term?
short term.
Why?
People forget about this.
No,
Look
but-
at the Concorde.
No, but short term. How has it helped Airbus in the short term?
Short term because
What benefit has Airbus gained from that?
how many airlines do you know of who had certain Boeing orders in place that have now gone and
None.
pretty sure Emirates have.
Have they?
I believe so.
What have they switched to?
As far as I know, from the limited research I did, every airline that had 737s requested
Emirates
Stop.
obviously never had 737.
stuck with 737s because they were already in production. I mean, let's put it this way. So Airbus literally has hundreds of orders, and if they can only produce 70 planes a year, that's literally the max. They were so proud this year that they peaked at 70 produced, and they have hundreds of orders. So even if you're an airline, you ordered them 3 years ago or whenever,
Yeah.
you're in a queue. Are you now gonna drop out of the queue and join another queue that's going to be another 5 years before you can get your aircraft? No, you'll still stick with 737. You'll wait for the year or year and a half or 2 years that it's going to be now.
Because they've been grilled so much by
They
the
will be
FAA.
recertified. You'll have your planes,
Yeah.
and you can probably get massive discounts and recoup your costs from Boeing. So, in a sense, because the way the aircraft manufacturing works, where there's massive queues, there's only so much you can produce per year. It's not like Airbus can just double their capacity all of a sudden, or double their production all of a sudden. The demand might be greater for Airbus, but they can't do anything with it. So they're not going to get extra income. They're not going to
True.
get any short-term benefit. In the long term, possibly. For example, if you're an airline right now and you're thinking, in 10 years my aircraft are going to, reach the limit of what they can fly in their lifetime, you might be thinking, okay, so we need to think about what company we're going to choose to replace them. Let's go with Airbus now, where previously you would have chosen Boeing. So in the long term, yes, but in the short term, do you still think they have any benefit? Because I personally don't. I don't think Airbus has. In any other industry, the competitor would have gained a massive advantage from this. But in terms of the aviation aircraft manufacturing, I don't think there was any benefit to be gained by the competitors.
Financially, how badly has Boeing been affected?
Very.
And is that
Billions, not only in compensation, in maintenance, in recertification, in everything.
And how badly will that then affect their ability to innovate in the future?
Well, I imagine the government would support them,
Yeah.
as they always have, as they have throughout this whole fiasco. But I would imagine that there would probably be limited in funds.
Such a big company.
Or the
It's
next
not going to go
project.
down like that.
I'm not saying it's going to go down, but Boeing were the market leaders.
To some part. It depends on what field, but yes, to some part.
I feel like Airbus.
Definitely not space.
Have Airbus overtaken them? I'm not sure.
In terms of the, the 180 to 200 seat category aircraft, so the A320 family, yes, they now have.
Right.
Without a question, the
the
A320
more
Neo
short-haul,
family
The
has.
regional.
The more
yeah.
regional, sort of low cost.
You wouldn't really call it a low cost
No,
kind
not
of
really
aircraft.
regional, 'cause the
No,
Neo goes
regional
fast.
would be more like 2020.
Yeah, the more low cost airline based. Airbus has.
Yeah, but you think about it, the A220, what Boeing aircraft comes close to that?
Yeah, but that's nothing to do with the 737. Like,
Okay, but this is just slightly off topic, but what has that got to do with the... what?
English.
what were you gonna ask?
What competition does Boeing have for the A220?
Yeah, exactly.
None.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So-
not. Unless they team up with Embraer, which is already falling behind. Well, then again, the Embraer Series 2, is it called? What's it called? Version 2?
E2.
Yeah.
E92, yeah.
Yeah. That seems to be very fuel efficient, but I don't think it compares to the A220.
It doesn't compare to the A220.
I mean, I haven't looked into it, so I can't say for sure.
True.
But
You never know.
but at the moment, Boeing has no answer to the A220, and is struggling with the to compete against the A320 family. The only sort of market they are still somewhat of a leader is the wide body aircraft, so the 777s, the 787s,
And then that brings the question to 777X as well.
and now with this 777X being affected with, I mean, to be fair, it wasn't really Boeing's fault. It was just bad timing.
Exactly.
It was Rolls-Royce's fault.
If you look at the A380,
Yeah.
Emirates wanted to place more orders for the A380.
Yeah.
They would have kept production on the A380. Due to supposedly Rolls-Royce not wanting to comply with Emirates' demands for the engine, maybe it wasn't financially viable for Rolls-Royce, I'm not sure. Emirates said scrap it, and they moved over to the 777X. So Airbus are losing out in the larger aircraft market, wide body. I think they're taking over on the narrow body side. As far as the wide bodies are concerned, how many aircraft do they have? They have the A380, which is now finished, out of production.
You mean
A350.
Have you talked about Airbus?
Airbus. They have the A350.
Yeah.
What else do they have?
A330 Neo, but
If-
apparently
if
that
we-
has not sold well. The A330 Neo.
Well, the reason why it hasn't sold very well is because they released the A350. Like, why would you purchase an A330 Neo when
True.
the A350 exists?
They don't have a direct competitor for the 777 or 777X.
Well, they do.
And the A340, which...
A340 is very old.
Yeah,
I mean, it has 4 engines.
Exactly,
There's no
so-
point.
Done.
A330
So-
Neo is the direct competitor to 777.
A3 what?
Is it?
A330 Neo. Yeah,
I
it's about the same capacity. It's about the same range, and it's fuel efficient because it's Neo.
I've
Yeah,
been
but
on
then
a
you
lot of-
say that, and then you say, why would you buy the A330 Neo when you can buy the A350?
Yeah, because they both are very fuel efficient. A350 has slightly more capacity though.
I've been on
Right.
I've been on many 777s and I've been on many A330s. I would much rather go on a 777.
Have you been on the new one?
Yeah,
Have
777.
you been on a Neo?
No, I've not been on a Neo.
Well, that's the difference there. Because A330 is a very old series of aircraft, to be fair. But yeah, I see what you're saying. So Airbus is lagging behind, but I mean that's why Airbus is doing what they're doing right now. They're playing at their strengths. They're playing at obviously the mid market, where A220 family is doing really well, and they're
Low-cost
tapping
market.
into the regional market, which is very strong in America. And they obviously Bombardier opened a manufacturer plant in America, so now they have a direct access to the American market, and Boeing has nothing to respond to that.
True.
So although they might be lagging behind in terms of the wide body, long range aircraft, they're doing really well in terms of the short haul flight aircraft, in a sense. Okay, so lastly, let's just answer this question. How much was this whole situation the fault of Boeing, do you think? So obviously we discussed it a bit with Alex.
Yeah.
In your opinion, I don't think you've done much research on it,
It's hard to say
but
because
in your opinion, how much do you think? So let's just put it in
Boeing.
context. Some people say that Boeing has basically committed corporate negligence and they should be charged with manslaughter. So
I think
the directors who are in charge of the company should be charged for corporate negligence.
I think it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Ultimately, I do think I genuinely feel it is both Boeing and FAA's fault.
Well, which
As
one
much,
are you
as
leaning,
much as each other.
leaning more towards?
So you okay?
The reason why I'm
Equally
equal
fault.
is because Boeing ultimately said this is our product, and even though it wasn't good enough, they said this is our product, this is what we're happy with. It's FAA's job,
To certify
their only
it, yeah.
job in that scenario is to make sure that it is
Airworthy,
worthy
yeah.
of airlines, and they failed at that. So Boeing failed as far as the task at hand was concerned, and so did the FAA.
Okay, right. Let's imagine for a second FAA doesn't exist and it doesn't have to certify the aircraft.
Right.
Okay. In this scenario, what would you say?
Boeing's at fault.
Okay. Well, okay, it's at fault, but would you say they should be charged with corporate negligence?
Yes.
Yeah, because
So, okay, interesting. So, but because they don't have an oversight, all of a sudden they are responsible for murdering hundreds of people. But because FAA exists and they should have oversee the certification process,
I still think they should be done for negligence.
do you still
There's
think Boeing
so-
should be
no,
done for
there's
negligence?
so many things. There's
The
so many
FAA.
factors. They didn't. Pilots didn't have to go through retraining. It was done. Many pilots complained that a lot of their training was just a PDF on an iPad.
But
Which,
I think the FAA should be done for negligence as well, because the FAA gave out their tasks. They outsourced their tasks practically to Boeing, which makes no sense. You can't outsource the
But it does
certification process of a product to the company that's making the product.
Exactly.
But it does to a sense, though.
No, but that would just be bias.
No, but they're not doing it independently. It is overseen by FAA at all times. The Boeing themselves are doing the tests. FAA are overseeing the tests. This is because FAA don't have enough staff or technological advantage or budget to carry out the test themselves. They ask Boeing to do the test when they just oversee the results, and on which they give out the certifications. It's not like Boeing just, takes out the exam paper, stamps it as passed, and that's it, let's move on. That's not how it happens. So
What's your opinion on that?
I think both are at fault, definitely. And I do think the Boeing should be charged for corporate negligence. Because
Not
if
the FAA.
you can't charge a government, but you can sue a government, I suppose.
But you think about it, Boeing is just a
At the end
company
of-
at the end of the day. The FAA is literally their job to certify it.
Yes, okay,
Make
it
it
is a
airworthy.
company. It is a company, but if you're the CEO and you willingly and knowingly put a product out in the market, which could potentially be dangerous to people's lives,
Yeah, there's that point as well. Yeah.
are you not at all to be blamed?
Of course, no. Yeah, he is.
McLaren very recently had to recall a lot of cars because it turns out a lot of McLarens were catching fire. Not just one model, lots of McLarens across their ranges were catching fire. And it turns out the reason, and they tried to sweep it under the rug, just like Boeing, they did not want to accept responsibility.
Who forced them to? Was it themselves finally saying, okay, we need to recall it? Or was it the
No one really knows.
oversight?
No one really knows, but Boeing don't like to say, McLaren don't like to take responsibility, so it must have been someone big who was threatening big things for them to actually take action. And what it was is they had a material that was basically fuel would leak onto it, and then that would catch fire, and then that would make the rest of the car catch fire. But they weren't done for corporate negligence, I don't believe. But it's the same situation.
But okay, in that scenario though, did they knowingly put the car out? Did they know that a car is doing that?
Cars had been catching fire whilst they were selling.
Okay, but that's after it was produced. They had no idea that would happen.
They were still selling the cars after some of them had caught fire.
And was there evidence that that's the cause for it?
That's why they recalled them.
No, when they were still selling the cars, was there evidence
As
that
it had cars caught fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
A famous
that's the
YouTuber
same.
called Salamandra. He, why am I giving him a free shout out? He had a McLaren Senna, which is an insanely expensive car.
Yeah.
Probably over £1 million.
Yeah.
Very limited. It caught fire, and McLaren just would not take responsibility for it. And he himself said there must have been someone big who was threatening big things for McLaren to take responsibility.
Right. Okay. So So I personally believe it should be corporate negligence for both Boeing and FAA to some extent, because they both share fault. Do you believe the same?
Yep.
Would you believe the same?
50-50.
Yeah.
Take the blame.
So, I mean, that's our opinion. Of course, it will vary from person to person, but that's where we stand. So what we plan to do next week, we'll probably talk about the Airbus side of this, discuss some accidents Airbus have had, see how they dealt with them. We'll talk about a bit more about Alex's coursework for year 2s. That's very helpful. I am looking into year 1's coursework to see if we can help you guys out at all. And if that's the case, we will definitely talk about it too. But that's about it from us this week. Do you want to take it away?
Yeah, so thank you very much for listening to episode 1 of Aviation Talk. That was me, Fayaz Garda, Aaron Singh, and Dennis Abel. Hopefully we'll be back next week. That's the intention, that's the plan. Same place, same time. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. And yeah, thank you very much.